Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka Han Swolo, and this video we're breaking down episode 3 of Star Wars The Bad Batch. The series so far has had a roller coaster ride throughout the galaxy that's chronicled the rise of the Empire. Throughout this video, we're going to be breaking down all the Easter eggs in the new entry, the general story, and we'll also be giving our theories on what could be coming around the corner. Full spoilers ahead, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the show, then you should force yourself out of here. If you enjoy the video, then please click the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe for breakdowns like this each and every day. With that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into The Bad Batch episode 3. Now up top, I've been getting nothing but Bantha Poodoo for how I've been pronouncing Omega. I've been trying to say it how it's said in the show, which is Omega, but I just can't do it anymore. I've been saying Amiga all the time, and I'm freeing myself of YouTube's control. I will call her Omega from now on. Hashtag so brave, hashtag thinspiration. Now speaking of standing up for what you believe in, we've just watched The Bad Batch go on a big arc throughout the show that tackles themes like subservience and freedom. After they deserted their unit, they travelled through space to meet LaQuain, a clone trooper who went AWOL after the Battle of Geonosis. LaQuain mentioned that he'd recently encountered Captain Rex, and we also saw firsthand how the galaxy was starting to be warped into a more imperialistic system. The Bad Batch ended up going head to head with their brothers once more, and they managed to get Cut and his family off the planet. They flew off into episode 3, which is where we pick up with them right now. Now the episode is called Replacements, and this carries a lot of meaning to it. Not only is the ship damaged and needs some of its parts replaced, but the clone troopers are also slowly being replaced by the Empire's soldiers. Throughout the episode, we watch as Crosshair is selected to train soldiers for the Imperials in order to have the best of both worlds. As we learn in the original saga, the Imperials realize that it's much cheaper to take children from their homes and force them into their army, and we're really watching that mentality being set up in this entry. We pick up with the ship travelling through hyperspace, and you might notice early on that there are sparks flying off the back of it, which foreshadows the damage going on internally. Now you also might have noticed that the voiceover, which is typical at the start of the Clone Wars, is completely gone. This appeared in the first episode, but it's been absent for the last two, making me think that that was the final usage of it. It was parodying war propaganda from the 1940s, and with it being missing, I'm guessing it cements that the war is fully over. Captain Obvious. Now Tech says he's trying to make a scanner that tests the abilities of their inhibitor chips, and I believe that once they know the full extent of how they operate, that they'll be able to control them. This means that they'll also be able to save Crosshair, who is of course now under the Empire's control. The ship goes into a steep nosedive after being thrown out of hyperspace, and the batch crash land on a moon. I love how whilst this is going on, we can see the gonk droid that Wrecker was using as a dumbbell sliding across the floor. He and Omega end up strapping in, and during this crash landing, there are several lines pulled from the dropship scene in Aliens, and the design of the restraints looks very similar too. Upon landing, we do get some more hints that Omega might be force sensitive as she goes to Crosshair's weapon kit. Clearly, there's a lot of emotion around his departure, and it is possible that she could have been drawn to it. Now it's also possible that she just picked this box at random, but I love how the show is giving little things to fan theorists like myself to pick apart. I don't want to go all Mephisto again though, so let me know if you disagree. Now even though he leaves your shoulder feeling like it's been hit with a COVID vaccine, the group definitely miss Crosshair, and we cut to Kamino to see him being scanned. The Bad Batch were of course resistant to the inhibitor chip, and thus we can assume that most humans and aliens that aren't duplicates would be too. However, Crosshair could be subjected to its influence, and Admiral Tarkin is desperate to know if there's a way to completely control all free will. This would potentially mean that everyone in the galaxy would end up loyal to the Empire, and the consequences of this experiment are definitely chilling. It's here that we also meet Vice Admiral Rampart in the flesh for the first time. He did pop up in episode 2 and is gonna be one of the big baddies in the show. His chain code implementation has been highly successful, and shoutouts Ryan Airy from Screen Crush for pointing out that Boba Fett 2 talked about his in The Mandalorian. This means that the act has a long legacy with it. Now you might also notice in the scene that the Imperials and Kaminoans refer to Crosshair by his designation CC-9904. This shows how they treat their soldiers as products rather than people, and I love how the show is very much about whether to conform or not. If you do, then you will be treated as a number amongst many, whereas those that rise up get to have their own lives and personalities. Tarkin and Rampart discuss Project Warmantle, which was first mentioned in the novelization of Rogue One. In that we learn that this initiative was created by Tarkin and that it had been kept on Scarif along with the Death Star plans. Crosshair will now head up the training of the Empire's brand new elite squad, made up of the best of the best of the best, sir. Little does he know though, he's training his replacement, and this is basically like, when your job hires a new guy and gets you to show them the ropes. Be careful with him, he's gonna replace you one day, and as we all know, the clones will be wiped out in order to have these sort of soldiers step in, though they can't hit for shit. Now on the moon, Tech changes the capacitor on the ship with Echo, in a scene that echoes the one in The Empire Strikes Back. They even use similar breathing apparatus to what Han had on, however instead of Minox attaching themselves to the hull, it's an auto Moondragon. One of these circulates the ship and takes the capacitor for themselves. These monsters feed on raw energy, and I might just be jumping at shadows, but I'm sure that Echo moves his flashlight over one for a brief second. I'm recording this before editing the video, so if I've left this bit in, then I'm right, but if I didn't, I'll take it out, and you'll never know how much of an idiot I am. What do you mean you already knew? Anyway, I got a lot more alien vibes from this moon, as it highly resembles the state of LV-426 in that film. Hunter shows how much better of a parent that he is now by letting Omega come along to hunt the dragon, and we watch as Wrecker complains about how much his head hurts. This could be setting up future events, and potentially the chip inside may have been shifted, and it is possible that the Empire could end up controlling him. Whilst we don't know that for definite, they do bring a lot of attention to it, but it may just be an excuse for him to remain behind on the ship. On Kamino, we see the new recruits discussing how loyal they are to the Empire now, and I've often wondered about why soldiers who fought for the Republic so happily joined up with them. We discover that the Empire pays and houses them far better, however we know that the Republic pretty much ended up becoming the Empire after Palpatine took it over, and with him being the Chancellor, he likely caused those poor conditions. Tarkin sends the troopers to Onderon, which we of course saw in episode 1 when we met Saw. I swear that's not a pun, but I'm so used to doing them, I don't even know anymore. Now the Kaminoans are clearly being pushed out at this point, and though they argue that the clones are much more efficient than the enlisted soldier will ever be, head office need to save money. The elites really don't respect the clones, and the Empire has of course used hate to make people fall in line with their ways. Firstly, they made the galaxy hate the Jedi by stating they tried to assassinate the Chancellor. This enabled the genocide that was carried out on them. Next, they made the clones hate each other, who was slightly different to them, and now they're making regular people hate the clones, so they will strive to take the opportunity to be in the army from them. It's very well constructed storytelling that carries a lot of political commentary with it about how things are manipulated by governments so that people turn on one another instead of those in charge. We find that the rebels are evacuating and that Saw has already moved on. Crosshair's crew storm the camp, and though they succeed in their mission, we know that the Bad Batch are much happier having chosen a path in which they allowed them to live. One of the rebels refuses to give up Saw, and Crosshair shoots them and says, "I believe you." Might just be my Batman brain kicking in here, but this could be a nod to The Dark Knight Returns, in which a similar scene happened. This also appeared in Batman v Superman, but let me know below if you disagree. Now, we see unlike Crosshair, one of the soldiers questions the orders, and he refuses to just murder civilians. Crosshair kills him, showing that defiance will no longer be tolerated, and it does cement how much his programming has warped him as a person. When we follow things blindly, we are truly lost, and it's going to be interesting to see if they can redeem Crosshair or not. I would love it if it turned out that his chip wasn't actually really working, much like the Bad Batch, and that he was actually just more willing to commit war crimes because he's a bad lad. That would be a great twist, I think, but whether they do that or not, yeah, I don't know. But just to know that he's just a bad person deep down, I think would be a great surprise. Now, Hunter and Omega find the Moondragon, but the former's mask is removed, and because of the atmosphere on the planet, he falls unconscious. Omega takes things into her own hands and goes after the beast herself, which leads her down cavernous tunnels. Here we see the monster isn't all that bad, and instead of shooting it, she simply distracts it with a flashlight. Because it likes to feed on energy, it doesn't matter where the source comes from, and thus she's able to retrieve the capacitor. Crosshair returns home, and Tarkin views the soldiers as following orders blindly, even though we know that they had to be given a life or death ultimatum in order to do it. Many soldiers throughout the saga would of course defect, and this leads to the rebellion growing in numbers. Therefore, Tarkin's short-sightedness and willingness to just save money does cost him a lot. Little pun there. Now, the Kaminoans are starting to feel like Blockbuster after Netflix showed up, and they decide that in order to stay making that dough, they need to up their product. This further ties back to the theory that they will try and replicate a Force-sensitive being, which we know from the latter part of the saga does come to pass, even if it's the Empire heading it up. Crosshair clearly misses his brothers, much like how they miss him, and back on the ship, Wrecker has made a bedroom for Omega. She's now part of the hashtag squad, and we end the episode with her finally having found a place to call home. Now, as for my thoughts on the series so far, I have to say I'm really enjoying the way that they're tackling the themes of the show. Almost every character in it has to wrestle with either sticking to their orders or going off to carve out their own path. It's a mature take on war, and though animated, shows a lot of psychology behind being a soldier. These clones are starting to question what they're really fighting for, if they should still follow the rules, and it's created a divide amongst their ranks that makes for a really interesting show. It's very much debating whether you should conform to have an easier life, or if you should stand up for what you think is right, and it is subject matter that has been and will always be relevant. That's why I love the show. It's taking one of the darkest times in Star Wars lore and showing how things played out through the eyes of a family of soldiers left wondering what their purpose is now that there's no one left to fight. I also love Omega, and I feel like when this is all over, she's gonna be the big character to come out of it. There's even theories that she might be Rey's mother, who at this point we know very little about, but I kinda hope that doesn't turn out to be true, as I think there's way more that they can do with her in her training. Either way, great episode, and thank you as always for joining me on another breakdown. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the show, so make sure you comment below and let me know. As a thank you for interacting with the video, you'll be entered into a prize draw on the 30th of May, in which we're giving away 3 copies of the Godzilla vs. Kong collection. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. The winners of last month's competition are on screen right now, so you know I give away these prizes, yeah? And if that's you, then message me on Twitter at Heavy Spoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer, which will be linked on screen right now. We went over all the Easter eggs in it and pointed out some of the things that you probably missed. Yes, you. So go and check it out. Cheers. Goodbye.